Hello and welcome. My name is Flower Grows, and this is yet another part of the series covering the entire Ableton Live manual. So before we begin, here's a little 5-minute beat that I made today. Again, has nothing to do with the video. So today we're going to cover the file and folder settings. As you can see in the manual, there's actually not much information here. It takes us to two links, which I'm going to talk about in a second. The first option here we have is create analysis files. As you can see in the info view down here, Live carries out an analysis of every sample loaded. When this preference is set to on, the analysis results are stored in a file, eliminating the need to reanalyze the sample each time it is used. So let me show you an example here. Here I've got a short sample taken from my previous video, the bug sound design video. Now let's drag it into Live, and as you can see, this has created another file, the ASD file here, which has all of the analysis info about this waveform here. So if I delete this now, and then I load this file into Ableton again, it's going to be instant. Again, it was actually a very short sound anyway, so it analyzed it very quickly. The thing with this analysis file is that it's especially useful for longer samples. So if we take this longer sample here, this was actually just the same sample but slowed down, which means that it's a very low pitch. As you can see there, it took about 1 or 2 seconds to fully analyze that. Now, if you have a sample that is an hour long or 2 hours long, which sometimes I've had, it can take up to a couple of minutes to actually analyze it. So then it's going to be really useful. Again, if I delete this long sample now and I load it back in, it's already been analyzed. You can already see the waveform as soon as you're dragging it in. And again, if I delete this file and I drag it in, as you can see, it has to analyze it first. So that's what this setting means. If I turn it off and I delete this file, then if I drag the long sample in, it's actually not going to create an ASD file for me. You might find this useful if you mostly work with shorter samples and you find these ASD files just to be unnecessary clutter in your folders. Because now, again, if you load it in, it's going to analyze it each time. And if you have really short samples like this, it's not a problem because, as you can see, it analyzes it almost instantly. So that's what this setting means. I keep it on. I work with longer samples quite often. Now, this next one's quite interesting, the sample editor. So let's say if I quickly record my voice. There we go. Now, this tiny little button is what's going to open the setting. So let me go back to settings. I have selected Melodyne as my sample editor. So when I press right here, it's going to open Melodyne. And as you can see, the sample goes offline once I press edit. Then it opens in Melodyne. So now I can edit the sample here. Do something ridiculous. I can simply press replace audio, and that's going to replace the audio here in Live. Yeah, that saves you recording something and then Melodyne and then dragging it in. And it also saves you from using Melodyne as a plugin in here, which is quite CPU intensive, and then having to freeze and flatten and all that. So it's quite a useful method, this little edit button here. You can also set it to other things, such as Isotope's RX10. So now I've set it to RX10. And if I want to edit this same file further now, I can click edit again, and it's going to open the RX10 editor here. And then I can edit it here further. Now I've changed it to have a little fade. And then I overwrite the original file. Oh, there you go. It worked. Okay. So you can also have that. You can have RX10 or something like that, and then the sample's going to be offline. You can edit it in your editor, and then there should be a setting somewhere such as overwrite original file, and that will replace the file. Next, we have the temporary folder. So this is something that you really don't have to worry about too much. For me, as you can see, once you press the browse, it will open the folder. For me, it's in my users, Ableton live recordings. So once I go here, you can see all of my projects that, what this means is, click here to select a folder where Live can store any samples that are recorded into a live set before it is saved. Once the set is saved, the recorded samples are moved into the set's project folder. So essentially, if you don't save something, if you're just working on a draft, if you've just opened a new live set and you're experimenting, everything that's there, the samples and stuff, is going to be saved in this temporary folder. And I think it's likely a mixture of projects that I ended up saving after all, and that's when the items were moved, and now that's why they're empty. And probably projects also that I didn't bother saving because I didn't like them, and so now they're just here, but they also don't have any items. This doesn't take up any space, or shouldn't take up much space, so it's fine. You can just check out the temporary folder if you like. It's potentially useful if you want to recover a project. Next, we have sound content analysis. Now, this is something new in Live 12. You can learn more about it if you go to Help, Built-in Lessons, and then you go to What's New in Live, and then Live 12 Features and Devices, and you can see here sound similarity searching. This is all about the browser mostly. I mean, not just, but it can be used to find similar sounds based on a reference file for audio samples. So what this does is essentially uses a algorithm to determine how similar sounds are. And it's not as simple as that if it has the same transient, or it's the same length, or the same kind of a waveform or wave shape, that it's going to be categorized as similar. It categorizes them on multiple things and then adds them together. What the setting means, sound content analysis, is that it's done in the background. So this is when you add anything to your user library on your laptop, or if you're opening Ableton and you're producing and there's new samples being recorded and frozen and stuff like that. This is so that it's on in the background. If you turn it off after a while, you're going to notice that the tags and the similarity searching isn't going to work the same way. We're going to talk about this in future videos more, but the sound similarity searching and sound similarity swapping, which is actually how I made that beat that I played you before. The way I found the drums is by pressing this button here. So I'm going to duplicate this and show you. There you go. I press the little arrow again. So quite a useful way to find sounds. So I would personally keep the sound content analysis on. It is very useful to find many sounds, especially if your library is quite big. And as you can see in the info view down there as well, it's also used for auto tagging. So if this is on and it does this background sound content analysis, it will assign tags, which is, and turn them on here. It will assign tags to everything, and then you can use the tags here to find stuff easier. So if, for example, if I want a lo-fi and vinyl drum, then it will find it thanks to these tags, and that is thanks to this setting being turned on so that it can do sound content analysis in the background. Next, we have Max application settings. So Max is a visual programming language where you can make devices and anything really. And I have the standalone version of Max. So what I did is I pressed browse, and then I found my Max application here in my applications. But you can also use the bundled version, and that will set it to be the bundled version that comes shipped with Live for free. If you have the Ableton Live Suite version, then you can use the bundled version here. Next, we have the decoding cache settings. So the link in the Ableton Live manual to Live's decoding cache doesn't actually work, but it's chapter 5.1.1, so we're going to look at this in a later video. Files like MP3 and various other audio file formats are actually encoded to save storage space. And however, Live needs them to be decoded in order to work faster. So that's what the decoding cache does. So as you can see here in this little chart, the reduced size, reduced quality, you'll find yourself working with MP3s or things like that if you're importing samples into Live. The thing is that each time Ableton wants to read them, it needs to decode them because, again, they're encoded to save space, and that takes time. But to play these samples instantaneously, it almost does a temporary sort of WAV version of the file. And so that's what this decoding cache is. Now you may be wondering, but you just said it's MP3 files that need to be decoded. Why are there all of these WAV files in the decoding cache? Well, that's exactly the thing, that these were originally MP3 files, but right here it's a WAV, and that's exactly what the cache does. It creates temporary WAV files so that Ableton Live does not have to decode these files each time when they're MP3s. I have about 100 of these, or exactly 100 here, and I've never changed these settings because it's my computer can handle it fine. But what you can do is you can set the minimum free space here, really to any size, and the minimum is 100 megabytes. I have it at 500. And you can also turn on maximum cache size. So for example, 10 gigabytes. Now, if I was to set it to, let's say 5, and then press cleanup, and then we open it again, you can see quite a lot of the items have disappeared, actually 97 of them. Now, 10 gigabytes is the standard. You might want to keep it at that. I usually keep it off, and I don't really notice a difference in my performance of Live, but this may be something that you want to try out and see if it makes a difference. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It helps the channel a lot, and I will see you in the next one.